Welcome back, screen reviewers. On today's episode of the Screen Review, we're spotlighting Echo Valley, a tightly wound thriller. From director Michael Pearce and writer Brad Inglesby, whose previous work in Mare of Easttown echoes here in tone and mood. The story is anchored by a gripping, emotionally raw performance from Julianne Moore as Kate Garrett, a once-renowned horse trainer now living in near isolation on her rural Pennsylvania farm. Still reeling from a personal tragedy and the emotional distance from her past, Kate is barely holding things together when her estranged daughter Claire, played by Sydney Sweeney in one of her most intense roles yet, arrives unexpectedly in the dead of night, bloodied, shaken, and clearly hiding something. What begins as a fraught reunion between mother and daughter soon spirals into a high-stakes situation that tests every moral boundary, as Kate is forced to confront just how far she's willing to go to protect her child, no matter the cost. The supporting cast only elevates the material. Domhnall Gleeson brings an unsettling presence as Jackie, whose involvement adds a creeping sense of danger and unpredictability. Kyle MacLachlan plays Kate's ex-husband Richard, adding emotional complexity to the family dynamic, while Fiona Shaw delivers a quietly powerful turn as Jessie, Kate's only real confidant. Michael Pearce's direction balances raw intimacy with escalating suspense, and the haunting cinematography by Benjamin Krakoun captures the isolation of the farmland with an eerie, almost ghost-like quality. Composer Jed Kurzel's minimalist score weaves tension throughout, amplifying the film's psychological stakes without overwhelming the human drama at its core. Echo Valley may be a lean 103 minutes, but it's dense with emotion, layered character work, and a creeping dread that builds with each scene. It's a slow-burn character thriller that trades jump scares for a more grounded, emotional kind of tension, making it perfect for fans of atmospheric dramas like Hereditary or Prisoners. If you're looking for a film that blends strong performances, moral ambiguity, and nerve-tightening suspense without spoiling its twists, this is one to put on your watch list. Let's talk performances, because the big three in Echo Valley are true standouts who carry the emotional and dramatic weight of the film with striking depth. Sydney Sweeney once again leans into the kind of role she's become known for, portraying a messy, emotionally volatile young woman who seems to repel sympathy even as you try to understand her. As Claire, she's erratic, defensive, and hiding something at every turn, which keeps the audience on edge and unsure of where her character will go next. Sweeney doesn't aim for likability, and that's what makes her performance so compelling. She brings a storm of anxiety and tension into every scene, serving as a perfect foil to the more grounded presence of Julianne Moore. Moore plays Kate, the mother still emotionally shattered from a recent tragedy, and her performance is a masterclass in restraint. She doesn't need big dramatic outbursts. Her pain is written in her posture, her eyes, and the way she tries and often fails to keep control over the chaos around her. There's a quiet strength in her performance, a woman who's been holding it together for far too long, and Moore plays every emotional beat with precision and honesty. And then there's Domhnall Gleeson, who might just be the biggest surprise here. Drawing from the dark, villainous energy he tapped into as General Hux in Star Wars, Gleeson brings a cold, unnerving presence to his character that adds a whole new layer of tension to the film. He plays someone who always feels like a threat. Even when he's being calm and polite, there's a sense that something dangerous is simmering beneath the surface. He doesn't just act like the antagonist, he feels like a force pressing in on the story, making things darker every time he's involved. His scenes crackle with intensity, and he commands attention in a way that never feels forced. The dynamic between these three, Sweeney's unpredictable chaos, Moore's worn resilience, and Gleeson's coiled menace, creates a kind of emotional triangle that drives the film forward and elevates what could have been a straightforward thriller into something much more psychologically rich. It's their performances that give Echo Valley its edge, anchoring the story in characters that feel real, broken, and on the brink. The pacing in Echo Valley is slow and deliberate, building tension gradually rather than rushing to big reveals or action-heavy moments. It leans heavily into its thriller roots by letting scenes breathe, often lingering in uncomfortable silences or restrained conversations that add to the unease. This slow burn approach may not be for everyone, but it works well for the kind of intimate, character-driven story the film is telling. As for the atmosphere, it's solid and serviceable. Nothing particularly unique or stylized, but effective enough to support the tone of the story. The rural setting, muted colors, and isolated environment all contribute to a quiet sense of dread, even if the overall aesthetic doesn't break any new ground. It does what it needs to do to support the emotional weight and slow-building suspense, without ever drawing too much attention to itself. The cinematography in Echo Valley is sharp, clean, and professionally executed, but it doesn't take many risks. Visually, everything looks polished and well-framed, with a clear sense of control over lighting and composition. However, it lacks a distinct visual identity or any bold stylistic choices that might have elevated the storytelling. In a film built on tension and emotional weight, leaning into a more creative or daring visual approach, through lighting, camera movement, or framing, could have amplified some of the more intense moments. As it stands, the cinematography does its job effectively, but it plays things a bit too safe, missing the opportunity to push the atmosphere further and leave a stronger visual impression. When it comes to rewatchability, Echo Valley feels like a one-and-done experience. It's a tight, tense thriller that unfolds with a slow burn intensity, but once the key reveals and emotional beats have played out, there's not a whole lot left to uncover on a second viewing. The strength of the film lies in its performances, and the initial tension of not knowing where things are headed. Elements that lose some of their impact once the story's full picture is clear. It's definitely worth watching, but probably not something that begs to be revisited often. Echo Valley is a tight, slow-burning thriller that thrives on strong performances and deliberate pacing, even if it doesn't always take the creative risks that could have pushed it further. The heart of the film lies in its big three leads, Sydney Sweeney, Julianne Moore, and Domhnall Gleeson, who all deliver standout performances that drive the emotional and narrative weight of the story. Sweeney once again embraces the kind of character she's known for, emotionally turbulent, stubborn, and tough to sympathize with, yet impossible to ignore. Her portrayal of Claire is chaotic and raw, adding an unpredictable energy to every scene she's in. Julianne Moore, on the other hand, brings a deeply internalized grief to Kate, her performance grounded in subtle expressions and quiet moments that speak volumes. She portrays a mother teetering on the edge of despair, and her restraint gives the film a grounded, emotional core. Domhnall Gleeson is the wild card. His character channels the unnerving, villainous presence he once brought to Star Wars, but in a far more grounded, real-world way. He's menacing without ever raising his voice, commanding scenes with a quiet intensity that lingers even after he exits the frame. The film's pacing is slow and methodical, allowing tension to simmer under the surface rather than explode in flashy ways. It's the kind of movie that asks for patience, using silence and long takes to create unease, which works for the tone it's going for but may feel too drawn out for viewers looking for constant action or twists. Atmospherically, Echo Valley is understated. The rural Pennsylvania setting, muted color palette, and sparse sound design all create a subdued, grounded feel. It's not visually bold or overly stylized, but it sets the mood effectively enough to support the slow burn narrative. However, this stripped-down aesthetic also keeps it from standing out in the crowded thriller space. The cinematography follows suit. It's sharp, clean, and technically sound, but it doesn't take many creative chances. There are missed opportunities here for more visually striking moments, especially in scenes heavy with tension or emotional stakes. A more daring visual approach could have added extra punch and made certain moments land harder. Finally, when it comes to rewatchability, Echo Valley feels like a strong one-time watch. Its strength lies in its performances, and the unease of not knowing what's coming next. Once the story's revelations and character arcs are known, there's little left to discover. It's a film that's absolutely worth seeing for the performances alone, but not one that demands multiple viewings. In the end, Echo Valley is a restrained, performance-driven thriller that does most things well, but holds back just enough to keep it from being truly great. I'm feeling a strong 6 on Echo Valley, but hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Leave it in the comments below. And as always, thanks for stopping by the Screen Review.